bedside. You can observe it perhaps in your clinical preceptors here, or in anybody that you intern with when you get out of here. But it's something you have to develop on your own. Your checkout process needs to be clear, smooth, and not take all day. One of the things that new practitioners often do is they take too long to do everything. Most people don't have an hour and a half to hang out with you. They want to get in and get their treatment and get checked out and leave. So, there's lots of ways that your office communicates. Phone, I told you my rap about I can get, it's a real pet peeve of mine, you know. I can't tell you. At Blue Poppy, we call our customers to find out, did you get the product? Did you get it on time? Did it work for you? Did it perform as advertised? Did it meet the need for which you purchased it? Blah, blah, blah. Thank you for becoming a customer. 9 times out of 10, hi, this is so-and-so acupuncture clinic. Thank you for calling. Your message is important, but it's not important enough for me to really answer the phone. I'm like, okay, it's a wonder that whatever percentage of people aren't going to make it. Anyway, because if I have, let's say I sprained my ankle this morning, and I decided I'm going to go get acupuncture today. So I pull up the Google map with the little bubbles, you know, the little bubbles from you getting your Google business, Google Places business, claiming it. And so I see a little bunch of bubbles that are fairly near where I am, and I call the first one, and I get a phone message. I'm going to hang up and go to the next one. Phoning and texting. I'm not good at texting. You'd think, you know, by now. I mean, I do Pinterest, and I do Facebook, and LinkedIn, and Twitter, and I tweet, and I blog, and I do all this stuff, but I don't text. Just social media is another way that you communicate. Your website. Snail mail is very powerful because we don't get so much of it anymore. We notice when we get one that's like handwritten, right? It's a real communication from somebody. That's a nice thing. Educational materials, bedside manner, front office. How does your front office work and act, and then everything else? It's important to remember that only 30% of all communication is verbal. The rest of it is body language and everything else about how our office functions. Enough said. So we have 2 kinds of phone usage. The first are inbound calls. So people, they look at your website, they're going to check you out online, there's no question about that. What's true about the internet is that even for things that we go to the store to buy, we check them out first online. We do our research. It's like, which lawnmower am I going to get? Last summer I had to buy a new lawnmower. And I spent, 30 minutes poking around at who's got what and what kinds, and are they environmentally friendly, and how much gas do they use, and do they pass California air quality tests because you guys have the most stringent ones? You have the most hidebound bureaucracies, whatever. So it's like, oh, this one, they can sell this in California and it's a good product, where can I find one, right? So then I have to go to the store to buy it. But first I check it out online. So people have checked your website already, or they've checked your Facebook presence, or whatever they've done. So they call you. You need to have figured out what you're going to say to the most common questions. What do you think the most common questions are? What are your rates? Your hours? Will it work for my fill in the blank. What else?
How long will I have?
How long will I have to come in? You need to have figured out what you're going to say so you don't hem and haw and stammer. You might even want to write those down until you've got them internalized, until it's a conversation that you know how to have, right? So that you know that you want to tell them that you like people to come in 3 times in the first 9 days, and then you'll be able to assess perhaps how many more treatments they need, but a typical course of treatment is X, or whatever those things are. If someone else is answering the phone for you and they don't know the answer, it's your job to teach. It's your job to teach your front desk staff what you want them to say. How you want the phone answered is not random, right? You want it answered a certain way. You want it answered clearly with good enunciation, and they should be smiling when they answer the phone because people can hear that in their voice, as opposed to that, right? Would you like me to have the practitioner, would you like me to have Dr. So-and-so call you? Would you like to schedule, this was supposed to be in front of that, a free consultation to get your questions answered? Then there's outbound calls, which most people don't do. Very few people do this. Yes. Yes. I believe in them.
How do you keep the boundary? Because they're going to push it.
We'll come. Can we get there when we get there? We'll be talking about that in a little while. A bonding call. I don't know if Greg's talked to you about bonding calls. It is something that you do certainly within the first 24 hours after a first treatment. The first 12 hours is better if you can, depending on when they came in. They came in at 5 o'clock, right, call them till the next morning. But if they came in at 9 a.m., you might call them before you go home. How you doing? Were there any questions that came up after you left that you'd like answers for? How do you feel? You were better when you got up off the table. Has that held? You got an elephant in the room. You got to find out. You're going to find out one way or another. You're going to find out either because they don't ever come back, or because, when they do come back, they'll tell you, so you might as well know now. A reminder call or a reminder text or a reminder email will cut down on no-shows. A happy birthday call. It gives you a reason to contact them, and if they haven't been in for a while. Just calling to see how you are. I read some research about your condition the other day, and it made me think of you, and then it was your birthday, and I thought I'd just call and say hi and how you doing. It doesn't have to be any more. A, it keeps you in their mind. B, you're just a real person in their life. Right? Email communication. I read several different marketing blogs on a daily basis. And for the younger people in this room, email may not be as important as Facebook. Facebook has become the internet within the internet. It is now larger than the country of India. It's not as large as China yet, but it's the second largest country in the world. And if I want to reach my son, since I don't text, and he's 30, I have to PM him on Facebook. That's the only way I can reach him unless I'm going to call him. right? So because that's where he is. That's where I can find him. So email may not be as important, but people still do get email. They check it on their phones maybe, but they get email. So there's a lot of things you can do with emails. Newsletters. My company does a Friday afternoon newsletter. Some of you may even get it. And in that newsletter, we put a link to the weekend web specials, because we have these ridiculous discounts on varied items every weekend, but that only happen from 5 p.m. on Friday to midnight on Sunday. And then there's links to interesting articles that Sean, who is the newsletter guy at Blue Poppy, finds and puts links to. There's the blog of the week, whether it's his blog or my blog or one of the other people's blogs. Goes out every Friday. And we have customers who choose to decide which herbs they're going to buy based on what's the special for that weekend. It's like, yeah, I use that formula, I'll go buy a case of it because it's 20% off this weekend. So we have a whole group of people who get that newsletter and use at least certain parts of it. A reminder email instead of a reminder call, if you are uncomfortable with calling patients, yes.
Just to jump back to newsletters, you're a retailer, so I can understand why you send out every Friday.
You don't need to do it that often.
Quarterly?
Quarterly is fine.
You know, because people would get annoyed getting too much.
Quarterly is fine, and what you put in them will come back to, but events, classes, volunteering, fundraising events that you're a part of, anything you're doing in the community, special offers that you might come in and don't want to get a flu shot, da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Okay. E-reminders instead of calls are acceptable. Yes. Rachel?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I know it's not ideal in the beginning, but when we don't have staff in the beginning, I have friends who have massage practices where they have an answering service that schedules for them. What do you think about that? And
It's better than nothing.
Uh-huh.
It's better than nothing. Having somebody to answer the phone. Or, the way that I know some people have done it is they have their phone on vibrate on their person. So you're putting in the needle, right? Phone vibrates. You finish doing what you're doing. Maybe you can go return that call in 1 minute. Maybe you can return it in 5 minutes. Maybe you can return it in 7 minutes. But probably you'll be able to return it within 10 minutes, right? In the cycle of whatever is happening. Most of the time. That's better than, hi, this is White Crane Clinic and I really care about you, but I never answer my phone. So forget about it. As Bob Timoni would say, forget about it. It's not happening. Anyway, this is another thing you could put in landing pages. Some of you know what landing pages are. They're where you get an email that has a really interesting headline. And you click on it, it takes you to a page where there's an ebook or a webinar or a YouTube video or something that you can see, but you have to put your name in there first and your email address to get it, whatever it is. You can use that too. It's a great tool if you have a webmaster. Every time you post a blog or you create a YouTube, you can send out an email to tell people about it. You can also link it to your Facebook page. You can also link it to your Twitter feed. You can also link it to your LinkedIn groups. If you learn something new, like I remember once I had a patient, she was my age at the time, and this was maybe 15 years ago. Maybe she was even older. And she had stress incontinence. I tried everything I could think of, and I wasn't able to help her. And she stayed on board for a full 8 treatments. And then, I said, you can continue to come if you want to, but I don't feel right about taking your money. We're not getting any adequate results, and I would like to refer you to a senior practitioner that may be able to do better than I can. And then, maybe 6 months later, after I discharged her from care, I came across some article in a Chinese journal. And this was in a phase where I was working on translation and really trying to improve my Chinese and whatever. And it had something in there about stress incontinence that I hadn't thought of. I didn't go there, didn't think of it. And sent her a card saying, I read this. I think I made a copy of it even. I said, this is in a Chinese journal, but if you would like to come back in, I have information that I didn't have before. And that's a perfectly good excuse for getting back in touch with somebody. Ask all of your patients to, put one of those widgets in your emails that allows people to like your Facebook page right there, or join your Twitter feed right there. You can automate emails. There are tons of companies to automate emails for you. One of my favorite is called MailChimp, as in chimpanzee, MailChimp. Has good different kinds of pricing options depending on how many people. So if you're only sending out to 250 people, then it's very cheap, right? If you're only sending out once a month, unlike some services where you have to buy a certain kind of package or whatever. All right. Social media is a great big bear. It is a black hole. We all have experience of, getting on Facebook and starting to dink around, and then all of a sudden it's 2 hours later. While you're building a practice, you don't have time to do that. Unless you're working on something specific where you're trying to contact friends of friends or doing, right? You're working on Facebook. But you can post articles, you can link to blogs, you can use it as a way to stay in touch with people who are your patients. At some point, it's not a bad thing to ask your patients to like your Facebook page. I wouldn't do it the first time they come in the door. Private messages when you need to say something to a specific patient, and that's the only way you can get hold of them for HIPAA reasons. If you're going to use Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or any of those as a marketing method, you got to put something on there that's of interest to your constituency every day. You can't build a following if you only go there once a week. It just won't work. It's one of the first things I do in the morning. I check my email, I answer the ones that have any relevance to anything. I go check the Blue Poppy Facebook page. If I've posted a blog, I link it to the Blue Poppy Facebook page and the Blue Poppy Twitter feed. Then I go work on, making one of these or something else, whatever, it's editing or whatever it is I'm doing. So if you're going to use social media, you really have to work at it. It's not necessarily any easier than any other kind of marketing. It's just another kind of marketing. Your posts need to be interesting to the people that you think are your potential patient population. For every time that you say, I have an appointment open this afternoon, And I know a woman who uses her Twitter feed to do that. If she gets an opening, she'll tweet it. She'll put it on her Facebook page. I have an opening this afternoon that just came up. But every time you do that, or I have a special offer or whatever, then there need to be 4, 5, 6, 7 other posts that are just interesting and are not trying to sell anything. In fact, are giving something away, perhaps. Your time, your expertise, your knowledge. Okay, your website. Websites aren't what they used to be, but you still have to have one. It doesn't have to be a gargantuan thing, but it needs to be more than a hanging brochure. There needs to be something interactive there. There needs to be a way for people to interact with you. Video accounts for better than 65%. The number is changing it's going up all the time, so anything I say won't be quite accurate, but it's better than 65% of all traffic on the internet is video. Now, a goodly bit of that is either inane and silly or else it's porn. But some of it's actually useful stuff, some of it's good. So for your generation of people, those of you that are under 35 in here, which most of you are, I think. Most of you are. Videos, you need to get some friend who knows how to do their camcorder, and I don't care what they're about. They can be about anything. We talked about this in yesterday's class. They could be a Qigong exercise for each season. They could be you doing a recipe for each season. It could be teaching people how to do a self-massage routine. It could be a walking tour through your clinic. It could be almost anything that is certainly no longer than 10 minutes. They don't need to be a big deal. You need a little extra makeup because the camera makes you look like you're white as a ghost. But having one on your homepage. So when your homepage comes up, they don't have to scroll anywhere. Either your phone number needs to be not down here in 3-point type. Up here in nice big blocky letters where they can see it on every page, I suggest. And then either, so here's your so-and-so and so clinic, and either here or on this side, right? So a video. And then whatever else, your navigation bar over here with the meet the practitioner, download the paperwork, what we treat, FAQ, blah, blah, blah. Videos, ebooks, free articles, blogs. People expect something to do when they get there. Okay. Oh, yes. Obviously, one of the things, if you are participating in your community, that one of these dots is going to be classes and events that you're participating in, and we'll maybe that doesn't come up in here. If you're going to be active in your community, make sure your patients either both know about it as well as maybe have chances to participate in it, in your volunteering and your connecting with the community. Okay, snail mail. You don't have to send out birthday cards. It's not a requirement. But patients that you're close to, patients that give you referrals, those people deserve a birthday greeting of some sort, a call, a text, an email, a card, something. When you get a referral from somebody, it's really nice to send them just a small little card just thanking them for their faith in you, that they were kind enough to do that for you. That's how your practice builds eventually. Fellow volunteers, what I mean by that is, let's say you get on the volunteer steering committee for the Susan B. Komen Breast Cancer Run Walk event in your city. I don't know, is it September that's Breast Cancer Month? Yeah, whatever. And that's, if you're doing women's health care, you'd be crazy not to participate in that. Those women all the people will know that you care enough about it to get out there and walk with them, or run with them, or bicycle with them, or whatever it is, right? So after it's over, after the event is over, anybody that you were working with on any committee that you were working on, or people that you met and got close to during that walk, it's great to send them a card. Just, it was great what we did together, and we raised this money, and it was really a joy to meet you or work with you, and include your business card. I've included my business card. I don't know if you'll ever need my help. Maybe we'll work on something together in the future. Thank you so much. Simple, but very nice thing to do. People really appreciate that. Letters to MDs or other professionals to update them on a shared patient's case. These should be scripted. You should have a digital file for these. You don't have to rewrite them every time. You just have to tweak them a little bit. We talked about this at length in yesterday's class, and I think there's something in this one about that. Of letters?
Yeah.
Yes, and there are a bunch of them on the Points for Profit website. You can download, and they're doc files, so you can do anything you want. You can cut and paste and all that. I really do want you to be successful. I wouldn't fly all the way out here if I didn't really. The more of us that succeed, the more of us that succeed. So we have to do it together. We have to help each other do it together. Letters and invitations to the media, to anything that you're doing. If you are doing an acupuncture cocktail hour thing at your clinic, or you're doing an acupuncture fundraiser at your clinic, the media needs to know about that. If you're volunteering to work to raise money for a local nonprofit, the media needs to know about that. If you got together as a class and joined the Susan B. Komen race, that would be a press release to the media. Pacific College class of 2013 raises X amount of dollars for 5 o'clock news on the TV. I've listed there a service that allows you to automate anything you want to send out to a specific list of people when you get big enough to be doing that, where there's, you've got 1,000 patient charts. I hope someday you've got 3,000 patient charts. Of course, by then, Click-to-Mail may not only be with us any longer, but there'll be other services that are similar that do the same thing. All right, your front office is a major point of communication. It's funny, last week, Sean, one of the people at Blue Poppy who works with me, he was giving some students a tour around our office. And he came upstairs and he said, well, up here is where the powers that be bigwigs are. And I thought about it and I said, no, Sean, the people that matter the most are the people that are answering the phone. Because they're the voice of the company, right? They're the ones who are interfacing with the only people that matter, who are our customers. I don't talk to the customers very often unless, I mean, it's not that I never do. Once a year I call the top 100 customers. As the founder of the company, I call them and talk to them about what's happening in your practice. That's when I find out how many I can't get in touch with. Like, where are you? But the people who are answering the phone, whether that's you or someone else, that's really important because that's a decision-making moment often for people. So when somebody comes in, is there tea, is there hot water, is there some, are they greeted by somebody? Do they walk into an empty waiting room? If they have to walk into an empty waiting room for a while, there should be a sign on the counter that tells them what to do. You know, thank you for coming in, have a seat, tea is available in the corner, I'll be with you I'm with a patient, thank you for waiting. Something that acknowledges that they aren't just walking in and, you know, what. Okay. Are the reading materials relevant to Chinese medicine? One of the things I suggest people do is to go to the Blue Poppy website, download all the free articles in the TCM info line, all of them. Organize them alphabetical by condition. Put them in a big notebook in your waiting room instead of Time magazine, with a sign that says, these articles are, you know, research about Chinese medicine. Feel free to ask the front desk staff for a copy of any article to take to a friend. But do you have brochures? Do you have stuff there that's relevant to the medicine as opposed to... Now, the one thing else that I would say about that is, if you serve a specific niche market, like you serve outdoorsy types, then it might be worth having Outdoor Magazine, right? You know, whatever your particular constituency is, if you serve kids, you might have Parents Magazine, right? You see what I'm saying? So, but you also want to have lots of information about Chinese medicine that's right there available to people. Clean, 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 clean. People expect medical offices of any stripe to be spotlessly clean. Are the carpets not stained? Are the walls not dinged and scuffed and all that kind of thing? Another thing to consider is if all of your treatment rooms don't have windows, right? You know, you have small treatment rooms with no windows. If you paint them white, then in the dark they're gray, which is not so healing necessarily, right? You follow what I mean? So rooms that don't have any windows, I think, need to be some other color besides white. Just my opinion, personal opinion. A play area for kids. What does it smell like in there? If you use Moxa, you probably need to have some kind of fans or air freshener things happening, unless you just use threads. And then the only thing they'll smell is incense from lighting the threads. Okay, free consultation. What's your name, sir? Hello? Michael. Free consultations. All right. So, here's how I suggest that you do them. They show that you have an abundance mindset. They allow the patient to find out, as I said yesterday, that there is no chicken blood behind door number 3. This is not a voodoo shop. It's like, oh, the people are normal, it looks nice, it's clear, oh, this is okay. It's not scary or weird. So they can come in, they get to see that. And it shows that you're willing to let them interview you. Right? You're interviewing for the job of being their healthcare provider in that whatever short period of time, which doesn't need to be more than 30 minutes max. So, Michael, the way that you control the conversation and the amount of time spent is you have a little form, right? A consultation form. You ask them 3 questions. You ask them, you know, besides their name and their phone number and their email address at the top. What is your major complaint? How long have you had it? And what else have you done about it? You don't start talking about qi or blood or Chinese medicine. What's wrong? How long have you had it? What have you done about it? Then you know, obviously that hasn't completely resolved the issue or you wouldn't be here today. You let them talk for 5, 6, 7 minutes. And then you say something to them like, if so your symptoms on some days are a 5 out of 10, and some days they're an 8 out of 10, and some days they're a 1. If I could make it so that what are now your number 8 days were more like your number 5 days. Right, so the whole thing shifts to better. The only time that doesn't work is if you run a fertility clinic. There's no better. There's either pregnant or not pregnant, but baby or no baby. But everything else, there's better. There's increments. And people who've been, let's say, in chronic pain for a while, or they've had insomnia forever, or they get headaches all the time, if their number 8 day could be a number 5 day, most of them would be thrilled, and they would come to you for the rest of their lives. Right? And then, if you can't, you can't. But if you can, put them where there's at least one other patient coming or going before or after, so that they don't have empty Chinese restaurant at 6 o'clock in the evening syndrome. Like, why isn't there anybody in there? Right? When you go to an Indian restaurant, you want to see Indian people in that restaurant. Ah, this must be a good restaurant, right? So you want to schedule them in the midst of something else, if you can. It lowers their risk. One of the things that we have to do is people have to jump some hurdles. It's not Western. It's not, right, you know, they have to jump some mental hurdles to land on our treatment table. One of the reasons that people buy Coca-Cola as opposed to brand X cola, 10 times to 1. Doesn't matter about the price. Because there's no risk. It's always going to taste, right? They know what it's going to taste like. There's no risk involved. Oh, this one I know, right? So we have to lower people's risk factors. You're late, Dr. Sperber. Would you like a set of handouts?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You know, I lower people's marks when they show up late. You get an absent. And it shows that you care enough. You know, you're willing to let them walk in, look around, ask you questions. It's all good. So that's why I think they're good. You just have to find a way to control it. And then, after that's happened, I didn't get to that page. Then you to say something like, I consider your, you know, this is treatable according to Chinese medicine. You know, I do new patients on these and these times. Does any of that work for you? Would you like to schedule? If they say no, then you send them home with whatever appropriate information is, and you email them or call them back and say, have you had time to think about this? Are there any other questions that you'd like to ask me? You can't push people into it, but at least you've given them an opportunity to decide that you're not a voodoo priest, and that you know something, and that you're open-hearted and available. You're willing to look them in the eye. There's nothing strange going on. If you think you can't help them, you know, somebody could come in and they've got lupus and they've got, you know, and they're 50 pounds overweight and they've, who knows, you know, they've got 6 different things wrong with them. They've got 8 pattern discriminations overlapping and inter-promoting, and it's really nuts. Then maybe that's the time when you send them to the most senior practitioner that you know, which is good for our medicine. It's good for us as an industry that you don't try to do something that you don't think you can do. Because if you think you can, you can, and if you think you can't, you're right. So don't treat things. Or if somebody comes in and it's not somebody you want to treat, you don't have to. Yeah, if it's somebody that makes you just get the creepy crawlies, then all you need to do is say, I don't think what I do is appropriate for you, and I don't think I can help you. Thank you for coming in. End of discussion. You don't need to take people that you think are whack jobs. You're better off without them. Yes?
Along those lines, I've seen happen in acupuncturist offices, a reception for a large acupuncture office, and a lot of times the practitioners who offered the free consults, they'd get people who come in and they'd establish a personal connection with the practitioner, but they wouldn't agree to have acupuncture, but they'd come by all the time, or they'd call a lot, and they'd be like, should I be eating this? They'd ask for dietary advice, they'd bring in their supplements, should I be taking this, should I not?
You mean without having scheduled? Then the only thing you can say is, I'm happy to schedule an appointment for you with practitioner X, whoever that is. But I'm not allowed to give you advice over the phone. And if you want a phone, or if you prefer to have a phone consultation, it'll be $35. Just cut it off. Don't,
So I've seen practitioners kind of keyed into that, and they would take those phone calls, and they'd end up spending.
Don't even as the front desk person, don't even let it get that far. You want to come in, I'm happy to schedule an appointment for you. There's 3 appointments tomorrow available. Would any of these times work, or something?
They let that happen here at the front. I've had patients who want to actually call me like when I'm not an intern and talk. I had this one patient that called just to tell me about some vitamins, and then I should go to some vitamin shop. I couldn't get her off the phone, and the front desk was like, well, just let it happen, or whatever.
I wouldn't. As a retailer, I'm in a different situation with that. If people call up and say, I need information about how to use Aller-Ease, or, whatever, one of your formulas, then we have to talk to them. But you don't, I think...
Well, especially as a new intern, like, patients don't need...
Yeah.
They don't need to be calling us for advice.
Yeah.
It's
And any way you can cut that off, it's appropriate to cut it off. Or tell them that you're happy to have them come in again. If you'd like to come in to the clinic, I can put somebody on with you who can schedule an appointment for you. You don't, it's one thing to be open-hearted, but you should be the one who gets to decide when and how you're going to give yourself away. Right? Patients will walk all over you, some of them, not all of them. So figuring out what your boundaries are before you start is always good. And we all make mistakes. I mean, certainly I remember one patient, she'd come in 2-3 times before she said something to me. I can't remember, this was, 20 years ago, I can't remember what she said. She said something to me that I went, oh my God, this person is totally out there somewhere on some other planet besides this one. And now I've treated her 3 times, and what am I going to do? You know, how am I going to Aikido this person out the door in a kind and compassionate way, because I really don't want to keep this patient. And, then it's like, okay, you finish 5 treatments and you say, I don't think this is really working very well, and I don't,
I just had
blah,
an
blah.
issue with a patient who had like my cell phone number, she knew where I lived and everything. I was treating her for a massage, and she got really, really needy, so I just told her that I'm gonna send her to the Ecom clinic, she can get massages there, and I just gave her my friend's information, like, you have it.
Yeah.
Take it.
Yeah.
But she still had my phone number, so she would text me, like, wanting to hang out, and I'm like, call me at 11 o'clock at night, like, absolutely not. This is just,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, whatever.
I wanna hire someone to be my assistant, to just take all my phone.
Well, that's also another reason why at some point you can't use your cell phone. You're going to have a separate identity for your work life, so that there were years when acupuncture wasn't legal, and Bob and I had a clinic in our house. And I was really happy when we were able to stop doing that and not have everybody traipsing in and out and through our house all the time, and knowing where we lived and knowing our house phone number and all that, having it's our clinic life is our clinic life. The landline at the clinic is the phone number, right? I don't want patients to have my cell number. Heavens.
That happened once, and never again.
Yeah. Well, when we make those mistakes, which we all do, it's like we want to be helpful, right? And then we make one mistake and we get burned, sort of a no good deed goes unpunished kind of thing. And then, right, exactly. So if you believe you can help them and they're not a nutcase, you explain that you need to do a full diagnostic workup, that it'll take this much time. Here's my financial information. You can explain, this is a nice thing to say, that acupuncture especially, or Chinese medicine in general, but acupuncture especially, helps the body better access its own healing resources. Don't talk to people about qi. We can't even translate it. It's not energy, and it's not information, and it's this huge concept that we don't translate it in books, right? Most of the time. We just say qi. And so I leave that alone and try to talk to people in metaphors that are as simple as possible. Remembering that at one point I didn't know anything about Chinese medicine either. So I'm not trying to give people a lesson about Chinese medicine. I'm just trying to get them to understand that by removing obstacles or blockages in the channel system, it allows their immune system to function more normally. It allows their blood and energy to flow more freely in the body, that nourishes the tissues and quiets inflammation, boosts cellular immunity, stuff like that they go, oh yeah, okay, that I get that, I understand that. Explain that treatments have stages, that when they want to know how many treatments it'll take, you can't really even know that till you've done like 3 treatments. You can say something like, most people require a course of treatment of 8 to 10 sessions. That would be a normal course of treatment. Some people less, some people more. After about 3 sessions, I should be able to give you a better prognosis of the length of care that you'll need. And and then we can talk about what will happen next. If you can get those first 3 treatments within 7 to 9 days, It's, to get the body to shift somehow. With herbal medicine, you try to put the patterns in the order of importance. That's the hardest part, right? So which chapter in Bensky do I start in? Am I starting with chi supplements and adding on? Or am I starting with dampness resolving formulas and adding on? Or am I starting with, that's why harmonizing formulas are so lovely. Because almost everybody who's an adult has some liver qi, and therefore some impact on their spleen, right? So that's why Xiaoyao San and Xiao Chai Hu Tang are two of the most used formulas in the world, because you can go in lots of directions with them. But the person has to take it for a week, and then they report back, oh, this is how, or you take the pulse again, or whatever you do as an herbalist. And then you tinker it with it, you refine it more. So I've got a thing out of order here. If you don't have experience with somebody's condition, and they say something like, have you treated sinusitis before? Have you treated insomnia before? Have you treated whatever, arthritis before? If you have, great. Great. If you haven't, then there's a conversation. You can show them a reference in a book. You can discuss that acupuncture is a slightly more global approach to dealing with any problem. And that because Chinese medicine doesn't diagnose based on disease as much as it does on pattern, that the disease is perhaps a little bit less important. You can suggest a limited protocol of treatments, at which point you can both reassess how well this is working or not. You really can't know before 3 or 4, whether you're going to be successful or not, depending on what it is. And if you think you can't treat them, refer them out to somebody who you think can. We talked about that. Okay, then, so, you ask for the sale. This is asking for the sale, right? Yes, I think you could help you. Would you like to schedule now? If they do, even if they don't, you send them home with something. You send them home with your clinic brochure. You send them home with an FAQ. You send them home with a brochure about their condition. Acupuncture Media Works. Even my company has a few of those kinds of brochures. So you send them home with some information, you follow up with them later. If they're going to come in, you give them some kind of an assignment to do. You engage them. Oh, I want you to do, you're coming in 3 days from now, so let's have you do a diary of everything you eat between now and then, especially if it were a digestive problem. You give them some little simple self-massage thing to do, something. Okay, so now they've come in. What will they think about your paperwork, your educational materials, the way your office is run, your exam? I know you've all been taught to do basic Western medical exam. You've been taught to take a BP, check their heart rate, those basic things. If you're not comfortable with your sphygmomanometer, practice until you could do it in your sleep, so that you don't fumble with the thing, right? They need to feel every time you touch them that this person knows what to do for me. Even if you're quivering in your shoes and you don't have a clue, You need to touch them as if you absolutely know what to do next. So that that's what comes through when you're putting on all of it. So practice the touching part until you're comfortable with it. Because it's important to remember that in our culture, a lot of people don't get touched at all unless they're having their hair cut. You know, we're not as a group. So your history taking an exam needs to be smooth. If you can, take your history in the nicest room in your clinic. Put your library in there. And it doesn't even matter if you've read all the books. It gives the patient faith that, oh, there's a literature to this medicine. Right? It's not just folk. Right? This is not a folk healer. There's a professional literature. Who knew? Yes?
So you're suggesting that we do not do the history in our treatment room?
Well, if that's what you have, that's what you have.
Right, but if you have another option?
If you have another option, whatever room you do it in, make it nice. Make it a comfortable and pleasant space that generates placebo effect. 30% or more of every healing interchange, even if it's surgery, if it works, it involved placebo effect.
So I've heard from different supervisors when doing the internship. One of them commented that the way we do it, the patient generally will hop up on a table. I mean, we're in the clinic. And you sit down in the chair and you'll talk to them. And his thing was you should never be lower than the patient. You should never have the patient looking down on you. Do you think that matters? I mean, it was his personal opinion, but that's the first time I've heard.
That just could be the way it makes him feel when he's doing it. I don't know. There's that whole thing of what is generated in the mind of a person when they're sitting across from someone in a white medical jacket. I don't have that shtick anymore in my personal interactions with MDs. And I've had, unfortunately, occasion to need the care of MDs a couple times pretty seriously in my life. And I actually appreciate, it's not my first, on an escalating scale of response, is not necessarily my first go-to. But if you have a brain bleed, you kind of need to go to a Western doctor, whatever, right? So, but I'm capable of sitting across, up, down, I don't care, without making me personally feel one-upped or one-downed or whatever.
Okay.
Depends on how that is for you.
Yeah,
but I
doesn't
try to
necessarily
sit
matter.
across from a patient, right? I want my chair here and their chair there and my pulse cushion here. And I want to look them in the eye. I want them to get a sense of my energy. I want to be able to feel them energetically. Right? I don't want them. I don't take a history with them on the table. So I want to be across from them. I want them to be my partner in their health care as much as possible. I don't want to lord it over them. I'm not trying to create some power relationship particularly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But you
no,
have to
it
do what
does.
works for you.
Yeah, I never thought about it until,
Right.
it never bothered me if I was sitting and they were a little bit higher, but, I thought, why?
Well, it depends. I mean, whatever the situation is there is
The patient, perception is
All of
off
that's-
because they're looking down at you.
probably.
That's what I wondered.
Probably. But I don't feel a need to be over, under, just, I want them to see me as a partner that has a specific skill set that might be able to help them. Right? Set up your history-taking space in a way that works for you, that allows you to communicate with the patient in what you think is the most useful manner that generates the best possible relationship and the most placebo effect. I mean, actually, everything about your office should be set up to engender and support placebo effect. Where are we? Paperwork, I think we talked about this. You know, they can download it. Make it so they can download it. Unless they call that morning and they're coming in right away. If they have to come in and they haven't done the paperwork, make sure that the appointment is scheduled 15 or 20 minutes before you actually wanted to see them, so that they don't have to rush, and you don't have to be rushed, and you don't have to say, I need to really see you now, we'll deal with the paperwork later, because that's no good. They need to see, here's what happens if you don't show up. Here's how much things cost. You know, here's what you can expect. Please don't come on a totally full or empty stomach. You know, whatever the things are that you want in your FAQ. They need time to digest it. People don't remember everything they read the first time. Heavens, you guys know that. How many times do you have to read Bensky? Or Deadman, or whomever. Flaws, for heaven's sake.